Coming up next on All About Android, we've got the Moto Z4 review straight off the presses from Ron. We've got a bunch of rumors we're going to talk about, the Pixel 4, Pixel 4 XL. Juan Bagnell's here, and he's going to tell us about something really cool. And we're going to dive into the Android Q Beta 4 and see what's new. That's all coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Expressvpn. Protect your online privacy with one click. Yes, it's that easy. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid. And by Behind the Tech, a podcast with Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott. He talks with tech heroes, interesting people, and folks who have made our modern world possible. Subscribe to Behind the Tech where you listen to podcasts today. And by Calm, the #1 app to help you reduce your stress, relax your mind, and help you sleep. Get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/allaboutandroid.
Hello and welcome to All About Android, episode 424, recorded live on June 11, 2019. We are your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I am Florence Ion.
And I'm Ron Richards. And Flo, we're Jason-less today.
We are, but
Yes.
so we swapped out Jason and we got a Juan.
J for J.
Juan Bagnell.
Hey.
What's up, guys?
That's what came in the mail. We said, can we have a swap for this week? And this is what the manufacturer sent us.
This
Hello.
is the best we could do.
Hello, Robot Juan. How are you?
I gotta ask because I feel like the last time I was on, Jason wasn't around either, and I don't know. I mean, like, did I say something wrong? Is he not?
I don't think it's personal.
Are we cool?
No, I really don't.
I think we should take this moment to congratulate Jason. He is out at his anniversary with his lovely wife, and they are celebrating.
Okay.
So nothing to do with you, Juan. It's more, he's got to make the wife happy, which is important. So congratulations. Many more happy years, Jason and wife. So
I feel that's okay then. No, I'm really stoked to be joining you guys again. This is always a fun show for me to visit. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I know Jason was bummed he was missing you again. So we'll have you back soon. So there it is.
I hope so. I haven't chatted with him in so long.
Well, you guys were
send him a
emailing earlier.
message.
I was on the emails.
I know.
All right.
Okay, we've got a lot to go through today.
Yes. Fun stuff.
We do. We have a lot of fun stuff. So I think maybe we should just roll into it and let's just go.
We got some gadget guy on today, so here's some Android news.
That was a good one, Victor. I like that
Some
one.
Android gadgets.
I like that.
Well,
it fits my
That's
mood.
my favorite one so far.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. So if you have an Android gadget that's running Q Beta, you probably got the Q Beta number 4, which rolled out recently for supported devices, and it's got a few notable changes, some important ones. So let's go over them real quickly. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. The share menu is now sorted alphabetically instead of seemingly randomly.
Where's the applause button? Yay.
When in doubt, alphabetize. Always. Developers always alphabetize. So big changes to the share menu. Screen attention is a placeholder for what might be functionality that keeps the screen from turning off when looking at it. It's currently non-functional, but it's there, so that's
Cool.
interesting. Otherwise, a lot of small tweaks and improvements, tightened up the gestures, things like that. We're 4 levels into the beta, which means that we're getting close to release. I forget how many P went through. Didn't it go through like 5, I think? I forget exactly.
Release candidate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget how many betas there were. We can find that out, though.
I don't remember. I'm just I'm a little perplexed at the fact that there's a feature that will adjust the screen based on whether or not I'm looking at it, and it's not available.
Well, but I mean, just to get back to the share menu, does anyone know what the order was before? Because I've never been able to figure out.
It was randomized, I always felt, or it was based on who you last interacted with.
I thought it was some sort of suggestion based on who you interacted with or what app makes most sense for what you're sharing. I always assumed that was happening.
The machine suggestions.
Yeah.
So the apps never made sense to me. It was the people share that would always mess me up, because I don't know why third-party manufacturer skins do that thing where they move the list down after they scan the people, because that's not what stock Android does, and that's that half-second delay is every time. Like, oh well, I'll tweet this photo, and I just hit my Aunt Brie. Great.
Can I tell you the phantom the time between tapping something and something loading and it shifting and you tapping the wrong thing gets me like at least 6 times a day. Drives me crazy
every time.
Drives me crazy.
I'll be happy for any improvements to the sharing menu. Again, I know this is sort of a slightly more unique problem for those of us in our industry where we're probably a bit more apt to share stuff. But man, do I have to correct that numerous times a day.
So just to answer my previous question, there were 5 beta releases on Android P. So here we are at 4 on Android Q, which means that if they follow the same update track, we've got 1 more to go, and then we're at release. So that probably puts us the end of summer. There you go.
The end of summer.
Do what you will. So
I'm getting excited.
At the end of summer, only 0.11% of us will have Android Q, whatever it's going to be.
No, it'll do more. It'll go higher, I think.
Okay, it'll be at least 0.43.
Tens and tens of people will buy a Pixel 4 and get
tens
Android Q.
Isn't that what treble and all that stuff is going to do? Isn't the adoption rate much faster now? Like, didn't P get adopted at a much faster rate? Or am I making that up? Did I dream that?
Actually, I kind of feel like P, even for those improvements to treble and for trying to help developers get on the train, I think a number of manufacturers ran into issues with Pi. Again, I've never been able to pin anyone down on the record with this, but sort of running my own loose comparisons and benchmarks, P did seem to introduce a bit more of a performance hit than I think we were expecting. And so I think some developers and some manufacturers actually had to slow down their release schedule to try and get around some of those performance issues. I know, especially like for phones that got it early, I was going through things like video rendering and editing apps and things like that, and noticing like, man, Pi feels fluid in the UI, but there's a bit more happening here, and it's taking up more resources on the phone than where we were before. So I'm hoping that once we make this transition over to Q, that there's a bit of a tick-tock schedule for some of this behind-the-scenes stuff, and that Q can hopefully make it through a little bit faster. But again, it's Android, so we don't have any great evidence that manufacturers are going to help push this software along.
Let's not forget that I think it was a little over 6 months that Google did not update the Android developers panel, the little menu that shows how many people are using which version of Android. Like, they didn't update that for 6 months.
Have they updated it since then, or?
They have updated it now.
It's not.
I still think my theory was that's the person who did it left and didn't tell them that's what they were doing, and it was like one of those the ball dropped. I don't
it was
like that.
A project team of one person at Google.
Exactly.
And they're like, wait a minute, where did Ted
He was
go?
an intern, and the intern had graduated on.
Exactly. Like they went on paternity or maternity leave and didn't tell anyone they had to do that update and that sort of and came back and forgot to do it. That's what I think happened.
It's always that stuff I wish we could get some of the behind the scenes, but I'd be very surprised if we didn't find out later, like far after the fact, that maybe there were some issues with Pi and the general rollout for manufacturers.
I was going to add to that and say that I've noticed my battery life has been exponentially better on Q, but I can't tell if that's because I'm doing it in dark mode or because what? I don't know. Like
dark mode, we're all finally back to hollow themes, so we're all doing much better.
Is that really what it was? Is that really what was sucking up all of my life?
I'm totally being facetious. I'm totally joking.
I mean, the dark mode battery optimization is real, but it can't be that real. If there's got to be something going on.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, it can't just be this. This is like. Yeah. This is amazing. I can actually get through the whole day now without worrying about it like dying. It used to die at like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Doing nothing.
I would hope that Q continues on that track record for some of those, some of the control over background services, how apps can call features, radios, power. That kind of stuff I think does have a real impact. It's really hard to quantify that when we're looking at upgrades. We typically get this stuff on new hardware, and it's hard to say, well, this phone has a different chipset, this phone has a different quantity of RAM, a different size battery, but Q seems to give me better battery life. It would be nice if we had better tools for battery testing in general, but then also generationally, as these products do get some kind of support.
Yeah, would be nice.
Well, shall we move on? Shall we move on to some products that do get support and then definitely don't get support when they don't want any more support? I'm talking about Apple products.
Oh,
yeah. I was trying to do a sick burn, but it kind of fell apart at the end there. Sorry, not that sick after all. Okay, so speaking of features, that's the intro that Jason had written for me. I should have just gone with that. iOS 13 was announced last week. If you went to lifehacker.com last week, you would have seen I wrote something about it. So iOS 13 on its own came with a bunch of new features, but here on the Android side, we like to look at where the grass may be greener just because the gardeners have come more recently. And we like to look and see what kind of things should we plant in our yard, right? Okay. So Android Police had this really great, thought-provoking just sort of discussion. Here's 25 things that Apple announced during its WWDC keynote for iOS 13. And these are things that we could really see on Android. A couple of those, just to kind of point them out, is automatic dark mode. I know we had just talked about, but it can be turned on automatically whenever you need it, which you kind of can't do that in the Android Q beta.
It's funny that this came up. And the whole thing on this whole piece was I felt like it was 50% yeah, I get it, that's cool, and 50% okay, you're griping for just a gripe, which is blogging, so I'll give them that. Some of these I won't give them, but automatic dark mode I will give. For the life of me, my phone just went off. Oh, that's weird. For the life of me, I do not understand why my Google News app can detect what time it is and automatically go into dark mode, and yet Google Messages app, I need to manually choose dark mode. Yeah. In fact, I literally just sent them feedback today saying, "Can you make dark mode automatic for me?" That's all I want out of the Messages app.
I want it to be a part of digital well-being. I want to be able to have that.
Oh, well, digital well-being,
over.
Whatever. Yeah.
But tying all this together, I think digital well-being becomes a good backbone for it. Again, the same thing. We've got an automatic amber screen mode that can track sunrise and sunset. To your point exactly, Ron. It's a little bit silly that for Google trying to present themselves as a unified software ecosystem, that those components just don't seem to talk to each other at all.
And even third-party developers, everyone made such a big deal. Slack added a dark mode. And I will, disclaimer, I am friends with several people that work at Slack. I love Slack. I am a Slack evangelist.
A Slack stan?
I'm a Slack stan. The fact that when you enable dark mode, it reboots the app when you switch between dark and light mode just feels like something is wrong. It just you're doing it wrong for some reason. But anyway, we can't go through every one of these points, but I did think that automatic dark mode was a good one. Flo, what were some of the other ones that you thought were good from this list? Because there are 25 of them.
Honestly,
full-page screenshots. I was like, whatever. There are apps to do that. That's why we have Android. I don't need that in OS level. But anyway, go on.
Sign in with Apple was the really big one for me.
Sign in with Apple? Why?
Because they have that really cool feature that creates the email address for you so that you can sign up for stuff without being super de-duper tracked. And I like just having those extra privacy features available. And I already use Google to log in everywhere on the web. So
except Apple knows what you're logging into.
Well, Google knows exactly where I'm going all the time anyway. So
right. So why?
Yeah, that was a pretty major aspect of WWDC this year was Apple taking shots at Google over privacy.
This is how we do privacy better.
Yeah, they leaned into the privacy thing heavy on it because it's a buzzword now. That's what people are looking for, right? And so they're trying to figure out how they can show they're more secure than Google is or whomever because they want to, you want to attract and keep people in the ecosystem.
Well, and this is where because I want to stay on this point, but then throw in another thing that Apple announced. When we talk about sort of Google as a diversified platform of different products and services, whereas Apple is becoming a bit more of a monolithic walled garden,
Right.
If your Apple ID is compromised, you also have an aggressively new Find Your Device where Mac products talk to each other as Bluetooth beacons, where you're creating this sort of mesh of Apple gear that can locate individual users and products. And it identifies you because it has to know you are looking for one of your products, and it can even detect that when your cell radio is offline. So while that is cool, and Apple is making some pretty big claims about the security of their operating system, that doesn't mean that there aren't some significant security concerns when you're talking about the services that are also being run on this more secure, I'm doing big air quotes, more secure operating system. That one seemed cool until I thought about it. And I don't want my products reporting on me to that degree. I kind of just like the idea, if my phone gets stolen, it just bricks itself. Okay, fine, that sucks. Yeah. But I don't know that I want it to do more to broadcast its location than that, because I'm getting real paranoid in this day and age.
It's like at the high level, it sounds like a great thing, and then when you explain to somebody how it actually works, then they go, oh no. And that's what I felt like a lot of this stuff was. A lot of the stuff they're talking, I thought they made a lot of good updates on iOS 13, but a lot of it seemed to not really cater. At one hand, it seemed to cater to the totally average user, like lyrics while playing music. Great, that's a type thing. One thing that was kind of is a frustration, like switching Wi-Fi networks from the control center, the notification pane. That switching Wi-Fi networks on Android phones are very difficult, and that's a good one. But then, like I said, the full page screenshots, the idea of Android Police is complaining about the Apple Photos app and saying a smarter photo library. The great thing about Android is that you are not limited to the software on the device. Google Photos is great, but you don't want to use Google Photos. Go use something else, right? And and to your point, Juan, the idea of the Apple walled garden, they only want you to use this Apple stuff. Where Android is no, there's a whole world of developers, and we're going to set the standard on Android and with Google products, and we're going to lay out the design theory with material design, stuff like that. But you'll be amazed at what people can do. I mean, I know people who bought Pixel 3a and immediately put Action Launcher on it.
Right. Exactly. Right? Well, I was Nova, but yes, exactly. I resemble that comment. I think one of the things that, and I don't want to get too deep in, because I know this was a story where we're talking about some of those features we want to see. I'd love to see some video editing improvements to Android. Yeah. I mean, I brought a video editing app to the arena, I think, on my very first appearance here, because I really do believe in trying to use our phones for way more advanced computing. If we're going to spend $1,000 on a phone, what are we doing with these products? And we could be doing so much more. But to that same token, I found it very interesting that Apple's solution for this was splitting off iOS from iPadOS, where in Android land, we're actually seeing them take Android to make it more screen aware. It's more flexible. It's going to detect when you're plugged into a monitor and turn into more of a full-fledged computer operating system. I'm excited for a laptop dock that's going to be coming soon so that I can turn my phone into a laptop and actually get a fair amount of work done, all from a mobile device. And I just got back from Taipei, where I didn't travel with a laptop because I did everything. Shooting photos and videos, editing, rendering, uploading daily vlogs, writing scripts, social media, everything from my phones. So it's interesting to see a walled garden, but then there's way more feature fragmentation happening there. They put up the walls, but then each product is getting its own little fiefdom so that it doesn't, you have to have multiple devices to achieve.
Yeah, but that's how you sell a lot of hardware. And that's why Apple has so much money.
It's true. But is that what we want? And I would be willing to wager anyone watching or listening to this podcast would say no. So
yes, this podcast demographically, but other podcasts demographically would probably be a little different thought of camp. Just camp of thought. Thought of camp.
I just think it's a fun conversation to have, because I know I have family members on both sides of the tech divide that are actually starting to question the products that they buy and the teams that they're allied with. So for me, it's just been fun watching this stuff kind of evolve and unravel, because what once was a foregone conclusion, especially in this age of $1,000 phones, is now being re-examined. And I think that's an exciting point to be at in tech history.
Funny you should mention that. Just wait till we get to the hardware section. We'll talk about that specifically. But before we do, one piece of hardware that was beloved is going away, and that's the Ouya gaming platform. Ouya's platform servers are dying on June 25th. Victor, I don't know if we have funeral music that we can play while we do this, but sad. If you remember Ouya, that was the great Android-based gaming platform that was just so cool and just showed like the future of cloud-based gaming, and it went to the wayside. So when it dies on June 25th, all games on the platform will stop working. So only games that will continue are those that don't require purchase validation at launch. And there's currently a preservation group called the Game History Association and scrambling to preserve the games and server architecture to support them. There are a number of Ouya exclusive titles that will be gone forever without this effort. And the group is storing metadata in a spreadsheet, downloading games and buying the ones that aren't free. Then they're going to work to see if they can make them playable once the servers go down. So far, 80% of the Ouya library is accounted for. And this is really indicative of the challenges that modern gaming that relies on cloud-based, server-based systems to run. And if they go away, they're gone. And so this is kind of sad. This is a whole chapter in gaming is going to go the wayside. Good on them. Good on them to try to save it, though.
I still have mine. It's in my living room console right underneath the TV along with the two controllers. It collected dust. It really wasn't... You know, then the Nintendo Switch, and you've got all these other things. Like the Nintendo Switch is a much better console when it comes to like indie games and like it just portability. The portability is there, and you
went with the big brand and not with the independent devs. That's all right. I understand.
I mean, even from Ouya's mission, I think they got hammered from. An explosion of mobile gaming content and console ports, and I mean even what you could do from your own mobile device was already starting to best what you would be able to extract from the Ouya. I really just hope this stands as a cautionary tale, that we don't have to keep relearning these mistakes. When some of the big news out of E3 right now is Google and Stadia, and those rumblings of a Microsoft streaming service when they talked about their Project X Cloud, I think it was a year or two ago. And I really hope consumers will start to understand that digital and cloud-based platforms are fantastically fragile. When it doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint to keep backing up terabytes and petabytes and zettabytes of data, then it all just goes poof. Just like with like MySpace, they moved servers and nuked years of blogs and music and content.
Nice example there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, we keep learning this lesson the hard way, and I hope we can start looking at other initiatives and other monetization platforms, other ways to monetize things, so that the idea of digital ownership and licensing intellectual property in the future can at least safeguard us from some of this. Because I just think about classic Nintendo games. You can go back to a physical piece of plastic and still play it and still have a great time. But when I moved from a PS3 to a PS4, almost none of that content traveled to my new console. And now I have to dig up this box to play something. If anything happens to those drives, it just goes bork, it disappears. These things have gotten more fragile as they've gotten more convenient.
And it's really interesting because it reminds me of the digital gap of the 90s, early 2000s, where there was, a huge archival effort around film and around TV and music and stuff like that. And then in the bridge between analog and digital, there's a whole period before stuff kind of went to the cloud and was digitally archived that people is just like, it's disappearing because it's not, it's on a early digital media that isn't easily accessible now. People took pictures on an old digital camera. They can't access them or whatever. And there's like literally like about a decade of media that's going away because it's just inaccessible because of encryption through obsolescence almost, right?
Yeah.
And then but now we're like, oh, but that's not gonna be a problem because I'm gonna take a picture and it's gonna go to the cloud and all this stuff, and you just assume it'll always be there. And it won't. It's not always going to be there. And I think that's going to be like, we're going to read a lot of dystopian sci-fi novels that start with, in 2032, the cloud fell to Earth, and and like, like that.
Oh my God, Ron, we need to write that book.
I know. Yeah, I gotta
yesterday.
The official All About Android prophecy said here in episode number 424.
I gotta call Tom Merritt. We'll write a book together. But it's
definitely be on board to consult for that book.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It can happen, and so like this is just another example of it. And the archivists preservationists of the world are the ones who are making sure that it's available and that it's taken care of. And so I'm glad this group is here to preserve this. Because we were talking before the show. We're talking before the show started. I every 5 years or so, I bend over backwards in order to play an old PC game through some emulator or something like that. Yep. I want to replay Space Quest. I want to play Warcraft. I want to play, And if there weren't people archiving them and creating technology to be able to access them, I couldn't do that. So I hope
those huge opportunities for commerce. Look at a service like Good Old Games, like where I'm going to go and play, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter again, and there is a legit retail point that I can get that, legally acquire it, money exchanges hands, copyright holders and license holders are appropriately paid for content that was made decades ago. But when there isn't a way to monetize it, if we can't archive it, this stuff vanishes. And we've been dealing with this since the early film days. It took money to store film stock. Then when we went into VHS and DVD, if they weren't getting sold, they didn't get a reissue. If they don't get a reissue, consumers never get to see these properties. And then we're down to like archivists trying to dig individual film frames out of vaults from rotting cellulose material. And that doesn't happen with digital content. When you just nuke digital content, you don't have any hard copy to go back to resurrect it. It just vanishes.
Yep.
Bless the archivists.
Yes, bless them. All right. Well, on that note, let's take a pause and let's thank our first sponsor of tonight, because this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Expressvpn. And so, admit it. All right, everybody, take a moment, be honest with yourself, admit it. You think that cybercrime is something that happens to other people, don't you? I know that's what you think. You may think that no one wants your data or that hackers can't grab your passwords or credit card details, but you'd be wrong. Listen, I'm one of those people. I thought I'm safe from all this, but I'm wrong, because stealing data from unsuspecting people on public Wi-Fi is one of the simplest and cheapest ways for hackers to make money. When you leave your internet connection unencrypted, you might as well be writing your passwords and credit card numbers on a huge billboard for the rest of the world to see. And that's why I use Expressvpn to protect myself from cyber criminals. Expressvpn secures and anonymizes your internet browsing by encrypting your data and hiding your public IP address. ExpressVPN has easy-to-use apps that run seamlessly in the background of your computer, phone, and tablet. Turning on ExpressVPN protection only takes one click. Using ExpressVPN, I can safely surf on public Wi-Fi without being snooped on or having my personal data stolen. For less than $7 a month, you can get the same ExpressVPN protection that I have. ExpressVPN is rated the #1 VPN service by TechRadar and comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So listen, protect your online activity today. Find out how you can get 3 extra months free with a 1-year package at expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid. That's expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid for 3 extra months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid to learn more and start protecting yourself. Browse in private. ExpressVPN. Thanks for keeping us safe. That said, let's go into the hardware.
Who has hardware today? Ron has hardware.
Oh, I've got hardware. We're going to do a little unboxing. I'm going to give you a full review of this baby here, the Moto Z4. Last week, I was telling you about it. I had my kind of first impressions. I got to play with it for a week and wanted to give my complete full review, which honestly doesn't really change too much from my first impressions, but we can go a little more in depth. Here is the Moto Z4, and in the box, it comes not only with a little reminder to Hello Moto, right? But it also comes with the snazzy 360 camera, which if you haven't played with the 360 camera, you're just not cool like the rest of us. We've all played with 360 cameras. Also comes with USB-C cable and a wall charger and all that fun stuff. So the Moto Z4 is the 4th generation of the Moto Z family, right? Which is most notably known for the Motorola phones with the pogo pins on the back with the Moto mods. And remember when Flo, I remember when this phone first came out, we were saying, oh, this is a gimmick. They're not going to hold on to it, yada, yada. Well, here we are years later on the 4th generation, and all the Moto mods from the generation 1 are still compatible, which is great. So real quick, I want to go over the main specifications of the phone. It's got a 6.4-inch max vision display with an in-display fingerprint sensor, like all the rage, all the cool phones have the in-display fingerprint sensor. It's running a Snapdragon 675 with 4 gig of RAM and 128 gig of storage, and it has a micro SD card slot. There's a 25 megapixel selfie camera with quad pixel technology, little teardrop notch in the center, and a 48 megapixel rear camera with OIS using quad pixel technology. Only one lens, not like on the Oneplus and some of the other phones. It's got multiple lenses. This has got the 1/4 size lens in the back of the phone. But at that 48 megapixel and the technology they've got in here, it actually delivers quite a punch in terms of you taking your pictures. So don't worry about that. It's got USB 3.1 Type-C. It's running Android 9 Pie and comes in flash gray, the color I have, and frost white. So the biggest feature or differentiator about this phone is the fact that it is Moto Mod compatible. So if you were a Moto Z, Z3, Z2, or Z1 user and you had Moto Mods and you use those little pins on the back, like the 360 camera, they all work, and you can instantly expand your phone just by adding it onto it, whether it's the 360 camera or if it's a battery pack or if it's speakers or an Alexa speaker, which is pretty cool. It's got all those expansion capabilities. But most recently, Motorola is the first company to release a 5G expansion pack. So you can upgrade your phone to 5G by snapping on the 5G expansion pack if you're in an area that supports 5G. They're doing test marketing in Chicago. So if you're in the Chicago area, you can get this phone, buy the expansion pack, and boom, you're on 5G, which is pretty cool. The other differentiator for this phone, which is interesting, is that in addition to running Android 9 Pie pretty much as close to stock as possible, they have very few customizations. They do have a little bit of Motorola software on there, but not enough to be annoying or not enough to get in the way. But in their camera phone, much like the Pixel, they have a night sight option where you can take pictures in low light. And I got to admit that the performance of those night sight photos compared to a camera without that sort of technology, and here's an example from their website, it really, they whatever they've done to work on their camera app to support this night sight function really brings out the best in your photos. And in a low light situation, you can take pictures at night, at dusk, after sundown, and get good pictures and just not completely black, or hard to tell what's going on. You really get a lot of the detail, and it really makes the colors punch. And that is a key differentiator from it. Additionally, it has a headphone jack, which everybody cheers when it was announced. So there you go. Everyone wants it. So in terms of performance, how does this phone perform? It's got great battery life. It's got a 3,600 milliamp battery. I used the phone for a few days without charging it to see how far it would go, and I made it about a little less than 2 days without charging, and that was with pretty, kind of heavy use, taking pictures, using the browser, using the web, using both 4G and Wi-Fi, and I went a little more than, a day and 3/4 without having to charge, which is great. But if you take advantage of the Moto Mod and have a battery expansion pack, you could go beyond 2 days because you won't need the charge because you'll have the battery expansion pack, which is just genius, which is great. So that battery life is a key thing that's pretty cool about it. On the performance side, on the processor, it is running an older chipset. It is running the Snapdragon 675, so it's not quite as snappy as the OnePlus 7 Pro that I've been using, or even the OnePlus 6T. That said, average user probably doesn't notice the difference. I was trying to run apps side by side to see how fast it would go, and the difference was barely noticeable. So it's not that, while it's got the lesser chipset in there, it's not that lesser, so don't let that hold against it for you. They do sell a version that they're aligned with Verizon, but there's also an unlocked version that you could buy at B&H or on Amazon. I'm on T-Mobile, and I just slapped my SIM card in there, and it worked fine. So it's not like this is a Verizon-only phone. And the best thing about this probably in terms of this is its price and availability. You could buy this at B&H or Best Buy or Amazon or the Verizon store for $499. If you're a Verizon wireless customer, you can get a deal as low as $240 for this phone. This phone is it's mid-range based on the price and the specs, but it's much closer to flagship level than it is to mid-range level. And so for less than $250, if you're a Verizon customer, you can have a solid phone that the battery will last long, give you great performance on the camera, and get the things that you want to get done with it. So in terms of my, kind of final thought and recommendation about the phone, if you're a Verizon customer and you are looking for an Android phone and you're looking for a phone that's dependable, but you don't want to spend a ton of money, again, this is a no-brainer. This phone is great. If you're tired of paying $1,000, if you don't need the top level, flagship phone, and you want something that is very workman and that can get the job done with a little bit of gimmick with the Moto mods, then for at $499 you can take a flyer and give this phone a shot. I think you won't be disappointed. If you've been a Moto Z user from version 1 through 3 and you have Moto mods, of course you're gonna upgrade because you want to keep on using those Moto mods, right? So it definitely is one that is the expansion can continue and you can still using those Moto mods, even though, and I will ding Motorola a little bit, that the design of the Moto Z4 is a little different than the Moto Z3, so they don't fit exactly as nicely and perfectly. But once you get used to it, it's hardly perceptible. So overall, I give the Moto Z4 a thumbs up. I would definitely recommend it. Anyone on Verizon, I would strongly recommend it. Just based on the price alone, the dollar per performance that you get with this phone is just really kind of it's hard to fight. It's hard to go against this phone when it comes down to that. $240 on Verizon. Go for it. So that's the Moto Z4. Juan, did you get a chance to play with this at all, or?
I haven't. I was a really big fan of the Moto Z2, and I'm really big fan of Motorola for what they were trying to accomplish. Also, still have to gripe and complain about Motorola not giving me a laptop dock using Moto mods. It seems like the perfect thing. Like, we've got these phones that can do desktop mode now, and how cool would it be if you just snapped your phone into the keyboard and then it became like your touchpad and would charge up your phone and you could power a whole laptop dock. And this is from the company. You really don't want to
carry a laptop around.
I do. I really want to carry a laptop that's powered by my phone. No, I just think it's been interesting because Motorola, in continuing this Moto mod experiment, they seem to have arrived at a holding pattern for power. And it kind of reinforces something I've been saying, where once we get out of the Snapdragon 821, we have probably been overbuying power to get a new phone. Anything that's floating roughly around that tier is probably overkill for most people's daily needs. And so from adopting the Snapdragon 835, and now if someone please correct me, or I've got the live chat up here too, that the 675, very similar to the chipsets that are in the Pixel 3a and 3a XL, we're still in that same power envelope, like in terms of horsepower. Like GPU, we're floating around a Snapdragon 835. Yeah. So in years past, when you would see a 600 series Snapdragon, I think there was a whole crew of Android Elite that would instantly write the device off. Now, that as long as you're in the 660 range, and even for a lot of people, the 630 range, I think would do most people just fine. But as long as you're in that 660 range or higher, you've got plenty of horsepower to be accomplishing some fairly advanced computing. This isn't about just covering the basics. You probably aren't maxing out that chip unless you're really trying to drive heavy lifting, case specific types of computing. So I think it's an interesting move. I did not expect Moto mods to last this long. So I'm happy to see this sort of, if this is our fond farewell.
No, I don't think it's the fond farewell. I think it's a commitment to a platform and a commitment to like, listen, they said we're going to do this. And if anything, you could blame it on stock. Like the Moto Z4 comes with the 360 camera. Maybe that's because they didn't sell enough, and so they're just bundling in or whatever. But who cares? At least they've committed to it. And
they finally got all those projectors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's funny because someone in the chat room was saying, "What didn't I like about this phone?" And to be honest, I'm hard pressed to tell you something that I didn't like about this phone. That if I didn't have my Oneplus 7 right now, thank you, Flo, or the Oneplus 6T before that, and I got this review model, I probably would use this phone as my daily driver because I used the Z3 as a daily driver, if you remember. Flo, do you remember back then when I was using the Motorola Z3?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which phone died. And then
I forget which one it was, and it might, but the Z3 served me. It was great. It was a solid phone, and so and you're right. Like I never, and admittedly, I'm not doing video editing. I'm not doing hardcore. I'm not playing PUBG or I'm not doing hardcore gaming. I'm using the phone the way I think most normal people use it, and that's for listening to music and podcasts, playing a little bit of a mobile game on the subway for 10 minutes. Messaging, email access, internet access, and that's the main thing. And in using this phone for a few days straight, I never hit a point where I got frustrated. The Motorola UI didn't get in the way. It feels like Android. All the apps are there. All my apps run on it the way they should. Got good photos, with the camera. Like when my checklist of what is a good phone is that it works in a way that I don't notice it working. Mm-hmm. Right. And when you notice a phone not working for you, that's when it's a problem. If it's with the UI or where the hardware is constructed or where the buttons are positioned or if the processor isn't enough or the battery life doesn't last long enough. But no joke, and I'm not even trying to give a flowery review for no reason. If I pop my SIM card in there and use this as my daily driver, I would not complain. I'd be very happy. It's a good sized phone, feels good. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel plasticky like the 3A. It feels substantial in your hand, and they're adding to it. So I like Motorola. I like what they did with the G line. I like what they're doing with the Z line. So so I strongly recommend the phone for somebody and again, it all goes back to price. If you told me this phone was $899 or $999, I'd be saying something different because I don't know if it's worth $1,000. But at $500, it definitely is worth $500.
Yeah, that's I've been very excited about this sort of resurgence of mid-range and getting back to sort of a $300 to $500 price territory. Having some more options to serve up family and friends where I'm not worried that they're going to be punished by the experience of spending a little bit less. Because it's funny, I've had almost exactly two different experiences showing off the Pixel 3a. And again, similar performance, but I think Moto earns their extra $100 when it comes to build quality and the extra machining, screen size, the Moto Mod Pogo pins. But if I tell someone how much a Pixel 3a is, they instantly start, oh, well, yeah, it's probably for other people, right? It's probably not for me because I have a nice phone and that's what I'm accustomed to. But if I let them use it first, they just sort of shrug it off as another phone. Like, yeah, it feels fluid. The camera, great. Yeah, it's another phone. And then I tell them it's half the price of the phone that they bought. And suddenly they're very interested in re-examining, like looking for faults and not finding them. So this again, it's a really nice pivot point where something that costs half the price of a Galaxy, something that costs half the price of an iPhone doesn't hurt to use. And in fact, is still plenty powerful, more than powerful for us to cover some advanced use. And I think we've all gotten a little too casual with like, oh, well, it's for covering the basics. The Pixel 3a is way more than you need for covering the basics. This Motorola is way more than you need for covering the basics. This is good stuff that's now approaching its own sort of unique price performance territory.
Yeah.
I just wish that there was just a billboard out there that I could just see, like, number of phones sold. I just want to know exactly how much each company is selling.
Considering that the top manufacturers have all stopped telling their shareholders how many phones
that's what I was I realized that was a very inside baseball thing to say, but I was referring to that fact that just you can't find out how much of this stuff is selling. It's all like conjecture, and it's really frustrating because I want to know if this Motorola is catching more eyes than I want to know down the line if it will catch more eyes than the cheaper Pixels. Excuse me, the more affordable Pixels.
We'll see what it goes. I definitely think that the Verizon kind of relationship helps them because Verizon is probably the strongest carrier,
and they won't abandon them.
Yeah, exactly.
They like having a house brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what Moto is. It's Verizon's house brand. It has been since like the beginning days of Android. Okay.
No, I just think, because there's a whole wide world out there, and lots of armchair pundits would point to something like the Pixel and say, well, did their Verizon exclusivity hurt them more than it helped them? And no, I don't know.
Just Google. Let's Ron, thank you so much for that review, by the way. That was very thorough. And now I want to go back to all of my Moto mods because they've been screaming.
They're fun. I saved all of mine. I love that little Amazon. If I was more of an Amazon Echo user, the fact that it's not the design of it is so that it can sit on your desk and be like a little desktop assistant. That's great. It works perfect. And it snapped it right in. Worked great. So,
although
Really?
I'd be honest, I would like to see a Motorola take on a Snapdragon 855 to resurrect that gamepad, because some of the gaming that I'm pulling off on the OnePlus 7 Pro is pretty crazy, and it would be nice. I'm just saying.
yeah.
Motorola, now an accessories company. Well, all that research. Juan,
Yes.
shall we? You have something that you wanted to show off that's pretty cool, not necessarily as powerful or as multifunctional as what Ron brought in, but you do have something cool to show us.
Well, I'm just really glad that Ron started us off in the mid-range, because I want to push us even lower, right?
Oh, right.
Like,
Let's do it.
I almost want to break out like the infomercial voice, but you could spend less. So this is the Coolpad Legacy. It was either earlier this year or the end of last year. I got to play with a $40 Coolpad, the Coolpad Illumina. This is their kind of step up to something a little bit nicer. Full retail around $180, but this thing is regularly on Metro for less. Like, I think when it kicked off, it was $120 or $130 phone. 6.4-inch full HD plus display, Snapdragon 450, 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage, dual rear cameras. I think a 13 megapixel and a 5 megapixel for depth, and sort of like that old Huawei system for extra clarity and contrast. And then a 4,000 milliamp hour battery with Quick Charge 3. And it's a lot nicer than I thought it was going to be. And this is just sort of reinforcing again, now we're still not covering the basics at $180. There are things on here that are really nice quality of life improvements to bring to an ultra cheap device. Like, a humongous screen is nice for multimedia and firing up videos. The LCD isn't going to win any awards for being the most color accurate, but you're on an airplane, you're flying from LA to New York, and you have plenty of battery life to watch movies the entire time and not have to charge it up when you hit the ground. That type of improvement to use to interactions. The Snapdragon 450 obviously gets a little twitchier. It's a little bit laggier, especially when you hit it with a bunch of services all at once. Like, you update an app and you're trying to use the phone throughout the rest of the UI, you'll notice some stutters, but it's plenty capable hardware at a phenomenal price. And this is just sort of pushing the needle on where we were last year with Moto G6s. That kind of power envelope is now coming in even cheaper with a really nice build quality. Headphone jack, speakers, metal frame, plastic back. It actually reminds me a lot of like Lumia 925s or some of those old Microsoft phablet-y phones. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say that Coolpad like ripped them off. No. But the industry walked away from some of those build design choices, and now we've got entry-level players that are picking them back up. So this, I think, is going to be another really exciting segment for smartphone consumers. The smartphone is a commodity. We're going to throw around phrases like cover the basics, but this does better than just covering email, texting, and phone calls. Like, you can actually get some fun multimedia use out of something like this. And this is the segment that I think a number of manufacturers are really going to start targeting more. We got news that Nokia is going to be bringing more phones to the United States in the entry level and mid-range. We know Samsung is refreshing the A series, and the A10e at $180 will certainly not quite compete with what Coolpad is doing here for full retail $180. So I think this is going to start heating up. I think this $200 price spectrum is going to start delivering far more capable devices, just as we've seen that kind of tech march down into the $300 to $500 price territory too. So again, that to me is really the exciting trend that a phone like this shows off. Is it's way better than just, I can do my email and text, but you spent less than $200 to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying for years that the mid-range to low end was the most underserved market, and that I think that Android historically has skewed higher range for too long. And so that's why I'm excited to see what Motorola's doing. That's why I'm excited to see what Google finally did. Sub 200. crazy. I mean, that opens the door for so many more users.
Yeah, when I saw that announcement on Samsung refreshing the A series and making a bigger play about bringing them to the United States, I think that's really telling that smartphone is a commodity. That idea is starting to take root with the manufacturers actually supplying these devices. It's not, can we keep someone paying $40 a month for 2.5 years? Consumers are holding on to their products longer. Consumers are getting a little savvier with their shopping. This is in my own personal experiences of family and friends of, my family holding on to devices much, much longer. And then when they're ready to buy a new phone, the Galaxy in their pocket is no longer a foregone conclusion because they see that sticker shock. They see that $1,000, $900, $800 price tag.
Or $25 per month for the next 3 years.
And they're thinking about it. Again, a lot of them will still continue on with the brands that they're familiar with. Familiarity still rules the day. But it's bad when it's tough for a manufacturer when you build brand loyalty and you have that emotional attachment to your consumers when they start rationalizing and trying to do the math on their purchases, because you'll start losing some of them. They'll start straying. Some of them will make different purchasing decisions. And now we've got better solutions to fulfill some of those shoppers looking to make a change.
Well, I need to kind of break the rhythm here, and
you go the opposite direction.
Go the opposite direction. Yes,
Go high.
We're gonna go high, but first,
listen, when Juan and I go low, Flo goes high.
Flo goes high.
It's true.
You beat me by a second.
It's true, as Michelle Obama said. So before we actually get to what our last little news item is, I would like to do some show and tell.
Ooh.
This pretty phone.
Ooh.
This is being referred to as the gold version. Let me put this away. I don't want this in the. There you go. This is being referred to. My fingerprints. It's being referred to as the gold version of the Oneplus 7 Pro. This is actually almond. See, don't you want to just bite into it, or have it be covered in chocolate, which is how almond is usually presented. This is joining the Mirror Gray and Nebula Blue models of the OnePlus 7 Pro. This has the same sort of glossy finish as that gray one, but it's a different finish than the matte one on the blue, which kind of actually makes it a little bit easier to hold because you kind of have you have the grease grip, which is what I call it. Which keeps the phone from slipping out of your hand. And it's really pretty to look at. It's very pearlescent, and in person, especially. Jason says that this matches my ensemble today. So when he had the phone over
that is actually a pretty good look because you always match your phone to your outfit, right?
I try. I certainly do try, or at least try to get a phone that matches within the color palette that I like to wear.
Yes.
This is $699 directly from OnePlus. It's got 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. So it's just one configuration. You don't get all of that fun customization option as you do the other ones. Let's see if this is charged. And it has the pop-up camera just like the other ones. And then when this pops up, it's gold on the inside.
Ooh.
So it's it's all special and sparkly. So yeah, just a little show.
So this is their answer to Thunder Purple this year?
This is pretty nice. I know it's not purple, but look at that. Just that sheen. It looks very cool in person.
I really like the way that it's catching the lights and giving it sort of like a reflected banding.
It looks like Vaporwave in real life, by the way.
That looks cool.
Yeah, it looks neon orange from in real life colors, not in the video colors. So there you go. Oh, hi. Ugh.
Hello there.
Okay. All right, we're gonna turn you off. So yeah, that's the almond OnePlus 7 Pro. Very sexy. 700.
I will admit, I do like my OnePlus 7 Pro. The blue one is very nice.
That's right. We both have the blue one.
I have been enjoying. I hold mine up too. It's in a case. It's not quite as nice looking because.
You see, I didn't put the case on it because I couldn't bring myself to cover up with the chintzy plastic case. Yeah.
I got the phone and then instantly jumped onto a plane to Taipei, and you're like, I can't.
Smart.
I need to. And then I just haven't taken the case off because I'm afeared of any phone damage. So
fair. All right, well, so let's go even higher.
Yeah,
Flo.
let's go even higher to phones that don't exist and will probably cost a lot of money. So, look, if you're on the internet, there's a lot of horrible stuff that happens, but also a lot of very interesting gossip. This week, the gossip is all about the Pixel 4 leaks. Boy, is that taking off in our little bubble. So I'm kind of still walking through the chronology of events. So we're going to go do this together real quick. Just kind of get caught up on the rumor mill, okay? So first things first, this week, I think it was this week, OnLeaks posted renders based on early prototype schematics of the apparent Pixel 4, Pixel 4 XL. Both then Unbox Therapy posted a video showing off 2 prototype solid metal models that were sent over. These are the kind of models that they send over to case manufacturers to help them kind of build their stuff ahead of time. So, they're ready to go when the phone is ready to go on the market. So when you look on the back, you see that there's this square rear-facing camera array. So 2 for visible light, 1 spectral sensor, which may be for low or no light sources, is definitely the thing that's happening in phones during this day and age. The square array is kind of similar to the rumors of the next iPhone, so that could be an interesting time for us and iPhone users. There's no fingerprint sensor on the back, which kind of leads us to, this is all rumors, so kind of leads us to think, maybe it'll be an in-display fingerprint sensor or something. No notch on the front, so there's that narrow forehead. It would contain a camera, an extra depth sensor to enable facial ID, similar to that on Apple's Face ID. And then, following that, no notch on the front, a new rumor was posted to 9 to 5 Google that claims, this kind of is out of left field, Project Soli could be integrated into the Pixel 4 in some way. So maybe that fingerprint scanner won't be around, but instead you'll have to just do some magic trick with your fingers. That's not really how Soli works. Soli, it's the ATAP project that uses radar hardware for touchless device control. Previously, it was shown, demoed with wearable devices, and it's kind of similar. Actually, no, that's Project Jacquard. Forget it. Strike that. Soli was granted permission to begin using Soli by the FCC last December, so that's why it kind of coincides with this. Soli could appear on other devices too, like the Google Home, as we said, Wear OS, smartwatches. There's also a little leak on XDA, which posted a Soli leak that kind of lined up with their own research, which is, remember that Android Q feature earlier on? They did screen attention. We're not quite there yet, but it's there. It's built into the code. So that might possibly tie into that Soli sensor, the one on the front of the device that would allow for hands-free control. So basically it would be a refined version of that gimmicky little thing that the LG G8 does. With regards to controlling music with your fingers. You'll be able to do things like skip and silence music by just doing something like that. And for our audio listeners, I'm making gestures with my hands.
It's very flamenco. I'm very much enjoying this.
Yeah, maybe they'll call it flamenco and you'll just have to...
Project Flamenco.
Yeah, just frantically wave your arms
Juan
around.
Will break out his old boots. I'll be very excited.
So
that'd be great.
I hope you could all follow along with that. This is a rumor mill, so it just keeps going down and down like a rabbit hole, and it can go forever as long as we wanted it. But I kind of want to ask you guys how you feel about this idea of the Pixel 4 kind of bringing us into a new user experience. So we have this really nice refined version of Android now. We have new security features coming. So what about this idea of a phone that is just this, you just have this fluid interaction with it? I don't know, Ron or Juan, who would like to go first?
Juan, I defer to you, sir.
Okay, so some of these ideas are actually very exciting. If Soli makes it into this, I am one of those lone voices apparently that does enjoy palm unlock on the LG G8.
Okay.
I never use air gestures.
I apologize.
But no. Because I also wear that fairly proudly. because it did sort of prove itself as I like to cook a lot. So I'm in the kitchen and you just hold your hand over your phone and then you can get your recipe back up on your screen. You don't have to like change your screen time out. That kind of stuff. Those little quality of life things, they start out as gimmicks and then they become very compelling. And then you forget that you didn't used to have them. So if that being one of the farther out there rumors, I would be really excited to see Google to incorporate something like that into a mainstream consumer product. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause with this strategy, I philosophically don't understand what Google thinks a Pixel is. Is it a test bed to show what Android might resemble? Is it a consumer-facing product, which is supposed to be a mainstream competitor against Galaxies and other phones? And I feel like we see Google play with these kinds of ideas, and then they don't stick around to refine them. I'm not wearing a Wear OS smartwatch right now because I'm a little frustrated with the current state of wearables from Google. And I recently spent some time with an Apple Watch. And while the Apple Watch was a joke when it first launched, Apple kept refining it. And that's the kind of longer term focus I'd like to see from Google. That's really, I mean, again, that's not an issue with this next phone per se. It's more a philosophical concern I have with Google feeling a little directionless with some of this hardware strategy after I feel like they nailed the Pixel 3a. That sort of brought back some goodwill. That sort of brought back some trust that, oh, they can take a vision, they can take a demographic, they can take a price point, they can execute, bring all these pieces together and arrive at something that's very compelling. And now I see them sort of, from what these rumors would suggest, if we get some of these things from the rumors, waffling on what a Pixel 4 should be. This doesn't look like vision. This looks like a bunch of cool ideas stapled together without good synergy.
Like a Jackson Pollock.
But that's what you get from leaks and from rumors.
Right, exactly.
Right? And again, I totally agree. I mean, that's why I don't like every news cycle being dominated by another Note 10 leak. You know, like I want to be surprised by the press announcement when they are ready to show off the product. But again, when we're here talking, when we see these little kernels, and given Google's track record going from the Nexus to the Pixel, some philosophical concerns, I believe, are fair. I'm just saying.
It's fair. I don't agree. I mean, I don't disagree. I think that no. I mean, I don't disagree.
No, it's fair, and you're wrong.
I think what happens is that with these leaks, and this is the problem with leaks in the world that we're in now, is that you're not seeing the final synergized, kind of like the to your point, the press release of the announcement of the actual device itself. I'm sure that there's a whole litany of Pixel 3 designs that we never saw. That were like, what if you could do this? What if you could do that? And all that sort of stuff. That said, I can't disagree with you in terms of Google's track record in starting something and not seeing it all the way through. That is a constant danger with Google, is that they have the product attention span of a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
So
and I have a 3-year-old. Very similar.
Yeah. All right.
But so what do you the only thing I want to kick back to both of you, the Pixel got kind of hammered. The Pixel XL got a little hammered over the notch. I spent some time showing my wife and a couple other friends the Oneplus 7 Pro, and no one noticed. Like, no one remarked on, oh, well, it's an all-screen device with no interruption in the display. How novel. Like, there wasn't any of this commentary. No one cared. They thought the pop-up selfie was kind of nifty, but then immediately came back with questions like, oh, well, that makes the phone more fragile, right? Like, it's going to be less durable. When we start seeing iPhone 11 mock-ups and Pixel 4 mock-ups, we saw the tech enthusiast space get pretty nasty about the Pixel 3 XL. Do you think we're going to be in for something similar if we get this sort of Huawei-inspired square camera module coming out on the next Pixel?
I think initial impressions, yes, and then if it delivers, people will convert because we made a whole lot of fun out of the pop-up camera. We made a lot of fun of it when we first saw that.
Yeah.
Right. And now, honestly, like I think it's one of the best things ever. I rarely use the front-facing camera, so I'm glad they got the lens out of the way. That's just me.
On my part, I think just for mainstream tech users, if Apple hasn't done it, then they don't know about it. That's kind of how I feel.
I don't know about that.
I know it's kind of a cynical view, but that's who I hang around with, is that if Apple hasn't done it, then nobody knows about it.
That's actually kind of what I'm asking though, Flo,
Yeah.
is especially with the people that you interact with. And I have a ton of people around me that speak iPhone, and I still love them, even though they've made poor choices. When we see some of those design elements move back and forth, do you think that an iPhone 10 might actually help improve the cachet of a Pixel 4 if they're seeing some similar design elements? Or do you think people are going to be like, it's a knockoff? They're just trying to be like the iPhone.
I think it's the former. I think it's I know just for my own anecdotal evidence, again, this is not scientific, just the folks in my life who have switched from iPhone to Pixel have done so because they were tired of the Apple way of life and wanted something different that was also just as easy to get into. And the Pixel comes across as like, I'm easy, I'm approachable, like, hey, like you've sat on this couch before. And so for people, it's like, oh yeah, I could probably use that. I have a Google account. I have all my information on Gmail. So it's not, such a big stretch, but man, it's just, there's a lot of smartphones coming out that people don't know about.
Yeah.
Well, that's it's a great big world of smartphones.
It's a great big
that's
world.
For sure. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we could do this for hours, but let's take a pause and let's thank our second sponsor of the evening. Wow, that's how long the show's been running. So this episode is brought to you by Behind the Tech, a podcast from Microsoft Chief Technology Officer Kevin Scott. He takes you behind the scenes with tech innovators, pioneers into the history of computing. And this is awesome. This stuff is right up my alley. In past episodes, he's talked to Danielle Feinberg, Pixar's computer scientist creating magic through lighting. Jaron Lanier, many people call him the father of virtual reality. Reid Hoffman, famous investor, author, entrepreneur, is best known for co-founding LinkedIn. And in the most recent episode, Kevin spoke with Surya Ganguly, an innovator in artificial intelligence. From quantum mechanics and string theory to monkey brains and electrophysiology mapping, Surya's take on AI may surprise you. On Behind the Tech, you'll hear what inspired their podcast guests to author languages and build the tools that made an impact on their lives of developers and engineers today. So if you're early in your career, learn about the history of the tech industry. And if you're from Kevin's era, some of you may think, oh man, I remember that. And that's definitely up my alley. I love seeing the names and hearing the stories of people who I grew up idolizing. And there's some great guests on this podcast. You definitely want to check it out if you are a tech enthusiast. So go now. Subscribe to Behind the Tech wherever you listen to podcasts. At Google Play Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Libsyn. Sign up, tune in, and geek out at Behind the Tech. All right. With that, let's go into some apps.
Apps are so chill and cool. You know what else is chill and cool is when you're driving, not touching anything besides the steering wheel in front of you, because that's the safest thing to do. And in order to avoid you touching anything but the wheel in front of you, Waze has now integrated the Google Assistant so that you can let people know if there's a speed trap ahead. So you can now report incidents while driving. So you can go, hey G, report debris on the road, or see something like, hey G, report traffic. It's, again, meant to help make reporting a completely hands-free process. And if you have something like the Anchor Roll Bolt, I think I said it right, I actually have that in my car, then your car can hear you say it. You just speak into the void and it'll know you have something to say.
I don't know if you're speaking to the void. You're speaking out loud.
Well, the car is a certain void,
It's contained.
I
feel like
it is
the
a volume that is filled with air.
True. All right.
And a person.
And everything that happens in there, it disappears the minute you open the door and get out of the car.
So
this is why I
feel
love my car.
Flow is technically correct, which is the best form of correct.
We're showing our California car culture way too much right now on.
Oh, totally. Well, and
That's
also
for sure.
just recently featured on the new season of Black Mirror, an episode about someone coping with the effects of distracted driving. I did this for the first time with Google Maps. And it did feel kind of magical to say, hey, G, accident, and to have it sort of note that and mark that. Because the thing I don't like about Waze is for those times you do still need to have some kind of interaction with the phone. They purposely make it so that you don't want to while you're operating a motor vehicle. And there are extra layers and steps to kind of dig into things. So I feel like voice controls, voice UI is going to be this great this great return to interacting with mobile devices, so that we can kind of free up our visual and tactile attention for doing more important things.
You know, like a little space station inside your car.
It's just getting weird now. Well, speaking of Google Maps and Waze, Google Maps is getting Waze functionality added in, and they just added a speedometer into the app to show how fast you're traveling compared to the posted speed limit, which is cool, except that it doesn't work on Android Auto head units yet, although it does work in the Android Auto app. But you still need to look at it to see how fast you're going as opposed to your speedometer, which there's an issue there. Use this with someone in the passenger seat, please.
I just got this on my Oneplus 7. Like, Google Maps just updated, and that brought in. I haven't dug into the settings yet. Does anyone know if you can turn on like an alert? Because if you've used Here Maps, they have like a little chime that lets you know when you're going over the speed limit. Again, an audio piece of user interface so that you don't have to take your eyes off the road. I would love to have sort of the Google Assistant voice or the Google Maps turn-by-turn voice, chime in occasionally to say, you're driving 10 miles over the posted speed limit, and you don't have to keep looking.
So what? I had a hard day. I'm just really wanting to go home right now. I don't want to be on the road.
I was going to say, like, if it has that, I hope it has a setting to turn that off, because I'm rarely under the speed limit.
Right. Well, Here Maps, they started giving you like an envelope. So like flow of traffic within like 10 miles an hour. But again, I mean, like at that point, I think there's still something useful in there to remind the user to like what's going on. And especially when you travel and you land somewhere and there just aren't speed limit signs, and you're like, I don't even know if my going with the flow of traffic is me going 5 miles over or 20 miles over.
That's the better one to look on Google Maps to see what the speed limit is, because you get on some roads, especially in this country where that's where it's long distances between towns and cities and stuff like that, and there might not be speed limit posted, and you just don't know what it is, and you might realize that you think you're in a 55 and you're in a 30 and that sort of situation. So that could be helpful. Although I tend to think the speed limit is more of a guideline instead of like a hard limit. But it's funny because all this talk about Google Maps and drive, like I've moved from a driver to a pedestrian / metro user, and I mainly use Google Maps for subway, navigating the subways in New York City or walking. And so it's just interesting to think about. These are functionality I haven't even thought about since I haven't driven as much as I used to. But it's neat. But Google Maps did add another interesting feature that was spotted in India as off-route alerts for when a rider is in a taxi. So you can launch the route when a rider gets in a taxi and be notified if the driver goes off-route. And you can also share the live trip with others so they can keep tabs on you while you're in a cab. And this is mainly about safety. And so this actually reminds me of a friend of mine who posted on Facebook that they got into a ride share, not a cab, not a taxi itself, but like a Uber or Lyft or Juno. And the driver was going not a way she expected, and she got freaked out because she thought she was being abducted and alone. Turns out she got there, and the guy just knew a shortcut. But that's the thing, is that like you're getting into a car with a stranger, so being able to agree on the route and then have some guideline when he goes off route is a great little safety tip for someone who doesn't drive, for someone's more of a passenger. So that's pretty
Or
cool.
for somebody like me, when she comes to New York City and she doesn't know like what the routes are, to have something that is just making sure that I'm on a route that is normally taken for wherever I'm going, because I don't know if it's right or not, or if I'm on the right path. And I really do like the safety feature. The only bummer is that my friends who are not using Google Maps, friends on iPhones who are using Apple Maps, I wish that there was some way that I could like share this information and like have them still be privy to my whereabouts, even if they're not choosing to use Google Maps.
Yeah, didn't Waze used to have an arrival feature that would just send a link out that people could follow? Do they still do that?
I'm just so stuck in my ways. I'm a tourist, so I don't like to move a lot. I really wanted
if
in
Waze
Google
is
Maps.
doing it, doesn't that mean we'll get it in Google Maps like a year later?
Yeah, I'll just wait until it comes. I'm fine until then, but...
But no, I totally know how you feel, because I sort of accidentally got myself into a gray market taxi in Shenzhen, and I had no concept of where I was in relation to my hotel. And I'm like, as discreetly as I can, just staring into my phone, like, did he mean to take this turn? Why are we taking a U-turn here?
I know.
Why do you make that decision? That's not on the route. Oh, there's the hotel. I can see it from here.
It's just a real bummer that this is something that we have to have built into phones, because we can't just trust people to take us where we're supposed to go.
But I think the positive is it's amazing that our technology can be used this discreetly.
Exactly.
To help us out. I mean, this is, again, I love these types of quality of life. Have a safe night out. This isn't just like, for kids, you need all the safety stuff. Hey, for grown-ups can be in precarious situations.
Grown-ups need to be safe too.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, this is an example of technology enabling us to be a little safer. It's not like this is something rampant, but like this isn't in reaction to things happening.
Yeah.
This is proactively safe. So that's okay, Flo. So... All right. So we're going to thank we're at our last sponsor of the evening. We want to thank Calm for sponsoring this episode of All About Android. And Calm, we want to know, are you struggling to sleep these days? If you are, you're not alone. 1 in 3 U.S. adults doesn't get enough sleep. I'm one of them. If you're not sleeping enough, it can affect your cognitive functions during the day, like learning, problem solving, and decision making. That's why you should download Calm, the #1 app for sleep. Sleep deficiency does some serious damage, not just to your brain, but to your body as well. The sleepless are more prone to accidents, especially while driving, weight gain, and depression. Don't let your sleepless nights turn into a lifestyle. Wow. With Calm, you'll discover a whole library of programs designed to help you get the sleep your brain and body needs, like soundscapes and over 100 sleep stories narrated by soothing voices, like Jerome Flynn from Game of Thrones and the amazing Stephen Fry. So if you want to seize the day, sleep the night with the help of Calm. And listen, right now, we're going to help you get a good night's sleep. All About Android listeners, you're going to get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/allaboutandroid. That's calm.com/allaboutandroid. 40 million people have downloaded Calm. Find out why at calm.com/allaboutandroid. You see, I got Calm there towards the end. We're just going to relax. We're going to get a good night's sleep thanks to Calm. Get 25% off calm.com/allaboutandroid.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now we're going to calmly go into our next segment, which is the Android App Arena. Are you guys excited?
So many enter, but only one lives. Android Arena.
Let's duke it out. All right.
All right.
Last week. I'm afraid. Okay. So last week we had who won? Spotify stations.
Yeah. Jason comes back.
I have to remember who did these.
That's a good pick.
Second one is Adobe Spark Post. I remember that was from our guest.
Yes.
And Pruitt. Third place is Ron's by proxy entry, Kids, which
was
really
awesome.
It really did throw us for a loop.
I
was
know.
quite
I
an
watched
experience.
It was awesome.
Thank you for that. And I'm in last place, but I'm not the least at 14% with weird cuts. It's okay. It was kind of a weird app. Ron, would you like to read the scoreboard?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, we've got a tale of two races here with
Yes,
the
we
arena
do.
stats. So we're 22 weeks into the year, and Flo, you're still in first place, but only by 1 point.
Yeah, I
with
know.
the guests in second place, but 62 points.
Holding on.
And thanks to Jason coming in first last week with Spotify stations, he was able to bridge the gap between him and me. So now we're tied for third place with 47 points apiece. So it's crazy.
Wow.
And all those who didn't vote for my app last week, download it. You're going to regret your vote because it is an experience. But that we're not talking about last week. We're talking about this week. And since I came in technically last, actually, Flo, you came in last, so you should go first.
Yeah, I
That's a
did
good
come
point.
in
So
last.
we're going to switch it up. Flo is going to go first.
Okay.
Ha.
All right.
There-
Hey, this is great. So this week is a very hot week here in Northern California. And when it gets really hot, especially with climate change and the way things have been going, we start to really worry about the things that are in the air. So the best way to get privy to these sorts of things is to download an app called Astrospheric, Astronomy Weather Forecasting. So this app is really cool because it taps into the data produced by the Canadian Meteorological Center. Wow, that's hard to say. And it gives you readings for all sorts of things that's going on. So not just the weather and what the temperature is, but also which direction are the clouds moving? Where's the smoke coming from? When did the satellite pass by recently? What is the ground temperature so that you know whether or not to wear shoes? These are all important things to consider when you're heading into summer, especially if you have maybe respiratory issues. You want to find out, what's how much of particulates are in the air that day. For instance, I learned from this app that there's a thing called aerosol optical depth, which is what meteorologists use to measure particulates like smoke, sea salts, pollution from factories, like all these different things. So I learned a couple of things with this particular app. And there's also a handy feature that lets you see the position of the moon, which, yes, I do use to charge my crystals. No shame. You have to do it when it's a full moon. That's when it's the best time to charge a crystal. And that means when you place it by the window. Anyway, so this app, you log in. There's a lot of information blazing at you at once. But I kind of like the fact that it's all just laid out there for you. So here's where we are right now. This is kind of where we're at. It's Tuesday around 6 o'clock. This app is only updated every 6 hours because it's getting the data directly from that meteorological center. So you're going to get a 48-hour forecast, and then you're going to get an 8-day forecast, and that's updating again every 6 hours. So I don't think this has been updated since this morning. So we're just seeing possibly outdated news. I don't know. But at a glance, you can see it tells you when the sun is going to go down. You can kind of see how much light you have when it's coming back up again. You can see which direction the wind is facing going. You can see what the temperature gauge is like, where our lows are with the dew points. There's also extended cloud forecasts if you scroll down more so that you can see what the cloud situation will be like. Now, you might be wondering, why would anybody want to use this? Well, here in the Bay Area, we have a lot of microclimates. And in order for me to really know if I need to bring a hat with me, even if I'm driving 20 miles, the climate can be very different. And so I want to know, do I need to bring extra sun covering with me? Maybe I need to bring layers, that kind of thing. Because even though the temperature says one thing, the experience when you get there could be totally different. And here down at the bottom, it shows you the moon details. You get your forecast and location details, including your latitude and longitude, which is just so fun to see those things. And if you want to see different layers, you can do that from right here. This is oops, that was the wrong button I pressed. This is the map layer. So you can see you can choose between smoke, cloud, transparency, jet stream. This is the thing I mentioned earlier, the aerosol optical depth, so we can see where all that lovely pollution is coming from. And sea salt air, I guess. If you want to go backwards, you can choose light pollution is a really nice one for anybody who has telescopes out there and wants to know where they should drive out and get the primo spot for stargazing. I want to show how this smoke one works, because I know that for those of us in the West, we're dealing with a lot of fires right now. And so I like this app because I can see where there are fires right now in California, what direction the smoke is coming from. This is really important information because, again, if you're going hiking, maybe you want to spend time outdoors. A lot of people, they go more inland if they're not going to the coast. And so it's good to know, like, what is the situation going to be like? There's a little dynamic function down here, which you can press play and it'll show you what the situation is going to be like over a period of time. You can go in and hit different buttons. Basically, it'll show you like where the wind is coming from. This is, again, the AOD sensor that we were talking about earlier. This one's light pollution. My only complaint about this, because I try to be thorough here, is that this can be a little confusing, like, oh, there's buttons now and I'm in this layer. But the nice thing about it is it means you don't have to constantly back out and go back in to try and switch layers and to, get a more dynamic look. I want to go back to the forecast. We're going to refresh real quick. So up here, little settings, they pop up every time you open. So you can choose your units that you want to, obviously I've got the miles per hour here and Fahrenheit. You can see if you want to see if the ISS is flown over, if that's something you're interested in. Overall, it's just I really like this app. I like the information that it gives me. You can log in, create a profile, so you can create favorites if maybe you're an outdoors person and you want to track certain locales. The only other bummer about this app is that it's not available all over North America. For instance, I don't think you can use it in Hawaii, which is a bummer because this also measures for volcanic ash. So in Hawaii, where there's a lot of volcanoes, maybe you want to know what's in the air. Unfortunately, doesn't extend out that way. So the data is currently available for USA, Canada, Alaska, and parts of Mexico. The developer sincerely apologizes, but this is astrospheric, and it has a cool little icon. So it's definitely what attracted me to it in the first place. So astronomy weather forecasting. It's what the meteorologists use. I'm not a meteorologist, but I like to maybe feel like one and point here.
Did I play one on TV?
Yes. Okay, so that was me. I was first. So then second, I guess we are going over to Juan.
Oh, am I up?
Right? Because Ron, technically you were second place, so you won.
So I go last. Yeah, and the guest always goes in the middle. So
it's you, my friend. Please.
Great.
I will load your app up here on the screen, and then after you do your introduction, we'll head over.
I really want to see you play this when you can't also play the music, because my app, I have been on a quest. You have crazy powerful phones. If you want to play games, you should be playing better games on your phones. So my app this week is Thumper Pocket Edition. And this is one of the exciting things I think that's happening as our phones have gotten more powerful, are some really exciting console ports that are coming to Android, developers bringing their games to a wider variety of devices. So Thumper was actually pulled. This game was originally launched for the PlayStation VR. And it definitely has that feel, as you are this metallic space beetle that is flying through the cosmos on this track that is taking you through this psychedelic, nightmarish scape. And they describe it, the developers describe it as a rhythmic violence game where you have to time your dodges and attacks along with the music, which is, again, this is why it's really funny watching you play this game right now, because you really have to be on the beat.
Oh, okay. See, I was trying to listen to you explain it, but I'm going to try and play it.
Yeah. This game is brutally unforgiving. Also, this game, again, if we want to also be thorough and talk about, some of the drawbacks of playing it on a phone, you really want to have direct sound. If you connect over Bluetooth, like if your main audio source is Bluetooth, this is going to be way too laggy. You're not going to be able to play this game because it needs to be precise. Like I said, the game is brutally unforgiving. You've got to time dodges, track transfers, and attacks exactly on the beat. And there is that very almost roguelike live, die, repeat as you're going through this wonderful music and this colorful nightmarish scape. One of the things that I think is really effective, and as you can see in the video, you're playing that game in portrait mode. For it being a VR port, you can play it in portrait or landscape.
What?
So if you really want to hold the phone up to your face and have really awesome headphones and turn off all the lights and play the game that way, you can have sort of a more cinematic look to the game. Or if you just want to pick it up for a quick mission, play it one thumb. You can also play it that way too. Again, I'm consistently impressed with what developers have been doing recently, getting away from just mobile games being gotcha mechanics and pay to win. And this game is $4.99. It was a port from the PlayStation VR. It really gets you into this chilling this chilling vibe. And it's surprisingly effective at immersing you in this rhythm, tap, react kind of gameplay. I streamed it for an hour from a phone.
So bad,
I streamed it for an hour on Twitch. And by the time you get to the first boss, you're breaking through these barriers, dodging these things, turning on the track, jumping over an attack, timing your attack so that it lines up with the boss being on the track. And you feel like you're doing these really quick, hard precision movements and stuff. The game is super effective. This is a shining example of what gaming on a phone can be, and I can't say enough nice things about it. So Thumper Pocket Edition, $4.99. Good replayability, because again, once you start getting into the music of it, you're sort of tuned into what it is that the game has to offer. But this is a game I will actually turn the lights off in my office and play a couple tracks, play a couple missions, and get frustrated and then break through, and then get frustrated and then break through. It's been a really good time for me. So I hope other people will check it out, because I want to see more stuff like this on our phones. I think our phones are being way underutilized for some really fun entertainment.
Man, this is hard.
It's really hard, but by the time you finish that first boss, you feel like you have accomplished something.
I'm assuming they call it Thumper because the music is very thumpy.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It's a good. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of an electronica, but again, psychedelic electronica. The art direction, the music, the sound design.
You mean?
It's really, yeah. Okay, that's probably a better. I don't know what all the hip kids are calling music these days, but. This is one of those things, like, I really like playing this on good headphones. Like, I'll throw in some multi-driver earbuds and probably listen a little louder than I should. But it gets you into this very effectively. And you can kind of see in its roots in being a VR title, it's still a compelling experience, even when you're looking at a screen, as opposed to being completely surrounded by this. The art direction is on point. I really like what these developers have done.
I could see this giving me a little anxiety if I were in VR. Not gonna lie.
It's intense. I mean, like, I'll send you the highlight of my Twitch stream, just getting into the final boss after an hour of grinding. And this is just the first world. After an hour of grinding to get to that first boss, and like, I'm sweating and I'm freaking out, and this is intense, and oh man, I'm stressed out, and then I beat it. And just, you can see the palpable waves of relief. So, like, I finally make the track beyond the first boss. It was an experience, and I'm glad. I was happy to share that experience with the world at large.
Well, Juan, thank you for sharing Thumper Pocket Edition with us. It's $4.99 in the Play Store. Support your devs, especially a game that I guess this is, again, you said this is a port over from the PlayStation. So
yeah,
not bad. Ron.
Cool. Yes.
Last but not least.
So last but not least, I've got a question for everybody. Have you ever sat at home and thought, man, I really wish the UI on my phone was more like a Xiaomi phone?
All the time, every Thursday.
Well, luckily, now there's an app for that. I know that previously, a couple of weeks ago, I came to the arena with an app that moved the notification pane to the bottom part of the phone as opposed to the top for these very long, big phones we have now. MIUI notification shade is an app that takes the bottom portion notification shade and takes it up a notch by mirroring a lot of the customization stuff that the MIUI offers. So here, Flo just launched it, so you can swipe left to get started. It's a great kind of onboarding that has you do all the accessibility and overlay service you need to do. You need to turn all the stuff on your side. They guide you through it very easily. So if you go back. Open up the app again.
Never good at this.
All right, draw overlays. You can draw, you can draw apps over. Oh. Cool.
I know why that's messing up because I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah. All right, you got to show notifications. All right, so once you enable everything, now you can choose what background you want. If you want to blur the background or add wallpaper, let's just do blur the background. That's fine. And you can turn on device storage, and it's basically you're turning it all on to work with your phone. But what it will do now, if you hit the arrow to go right. All right, where you get started. And what's great is that you have this little handle that you can adjust on the phone of where you want it to be. And you can turn on, and this shows you how to turn on the service. So just tap on that to start the service. These little walkthroughs are tough for demos. So once you turn on the service, you get a little pill at the bottom, which is hard to see on the screen here. But if you tap on that panel, or not, there, if you just tap on it, or swipe up, kind of. There you go. Or hit the little pill at the bottom. Do you see that there?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah. Flo, you're killing me.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
No, she's totally doing not.
No, I mean I'm not. I'm not. Hold on.
So why don't we do this? You can on the you see, there it is right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. It's just it's not responding
go
to
back
my touch.
Go scroll up on the app and go to handle. See the tap that, and now you can make the handle height higher. Whoop. There you go. Okay,
all right. There we go.
So now swipe
there
up.
We
there.
go.
There it is. So once you adjust the handle to your desired height, you see you get the notification pane along the bottom, not along the top. Which if you have a big phone and your thumb can't reach all the way to the top of it, this is a great way to solve it. But I've shown apps that do this before in the past. That's nothing. That's no big deal. But what's great and what makes this app so different is that it picks up a lot of stuff that the MIUI does, specifically around the tiles. So if you tap tiles, right, what you can do is you can add on other tiles to that notification shade. And right here, it gives you a little thing saying that these features are for premium users. If you scroll back up, Flo, if you pay for the premium version, you can unlock this. It's only $2.49. So support your devs, just $2.49. And what you can do is if there's specific settings that you use a lot, and if you scroll up on those tiles, you can see, Flo, there's everything from USB tethering to hot restarts to reboot to bootloader. You can turn on immersive mode. You can do screen timeout. You can do screenshot. There's a whole bunch of different options. If you've ever wanted to customize what shows up in that notification tile, these notification pane, these tiles allow you to do it. Additionally, if you go back one, Flo, you can look at in the upper right-hand corner, you can adjust the sliders. So if you hit sliders in the upper right-hand corner, you can say, okay, give me brightness, but also give me media volume, alarm volume, ring volume, and notification volume. A lot of time, these volumes are just so buried in the Android OS. This is great to have this app that kind of brings them out. Yeah. And there it is. So once you swipe up, see now you can adjust your brightness. You can change all your different things. You got to keep on giving it system settings. Additionally, if you tap on layout, if you go back from sliders back to the main menu and tap on layout, you can customize the way this whole looks. How many rows in the notification pane do you see? How many columns? What is the radius of the corners? It just gives you a lot of customization stuff, so you can truly make the bottom quick settings, kind of notification shade your own and completely customize it. So it's MIUI notification shade. It's free to play with a little bit, and then it's $2.49 to unlock all the premium features, which basically allow you to change the theme and the colors, add more tiles, do more customization stuff. It gives you, kind of a notification shade on steroids that is completely customizable. So MIUI notification shade. It's free in the Google Play Store. $2.49 to unlock all the stuff. So support your devs. There you go.
Cool.
And this is totally the kind of stuff that I would expect to see in Android at some point. So
yeah, that seems pretty fluid, actually, that whole gesture.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So that is it for this week's Android App Arena. If you would like to vote, please do vote. We appreciate it when you do vote and participate. You can go to twit.to, that's TO/AAA poll 424. That's AAA poll 424. And you can vote. And Victor's going to do our first honorary vote of the night. And Victor, I think maybe Victor played that game on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
PSVR port.
It just looked cool. It just looked cool. All right. And so that URL again, twit.to/AAA poll 424. Go and vote. And next week we will read the results. And that brings us to the end.
To the end of the show.
The end of the show. Juan, thank you so much for joining us this week and for helping,
thanks for having me.
Fill in for our missing Jason.
Totally. At some point, I'll be able to talk to Jason again. I'm sure it'll happen.
I don't know. You might be his stand-in at this point. So.
Well, I mean, they're practically twin brothers. I mean, when I look at Juan, I'm like, wait, is that Jason? I'm not sure. So, yeah.
It's like Fozzie and Kermit over here. I can't tell them apart. So,
Juan, do you have anything that you want to leave everyone with? Just some plugging, or you want to leave us a wish?
Oh, for sure. I'll always down to plug things. I mean, again, I'm some gadget guy across the internet. I just got back from Taipei Computex, getting to cover that for Newegg. So you're going to see a bunch of videos from Newegg, especially over the next month, where we're going to have some other stuff to talk about once AMD and Navi and Ryzen 3rd Gen are sort of filtering out and we get our hands on some of that gear too. And then my YouTube channel, just a ton of techie and geeky and smartphone-y things that I like to talk about just for my own personal, sort of fun. My OnePlus Almond phone should be coming soon, so I'll have some stuff to say about that too. But I'm around. You'll find me around. But all of those and thank you for sharing that screen grab. All of those travel vlogs were all shot, edited, rendered, and uploaded all from phones. So it was it was a really fun trip, and so being able to put stuff like that together it's exciting stuff. And again, I kind of want to keep preaching the gospel of mobile, because there's a lot of stuff that people could be doing, and if we're going to spend this much on a mobile device, we can get more out of our purchases. So
awesome! Thank you so much, Juan, for being on this week.
Thank you,
Ron.
Yes.
What's up in your world? Anything?
Not much. Just go to follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at RonXO. Nonsense. That's about it. Just getting ready for summer. So.
Just getting ready for summer.
I'm low on the plugs these days.
Yeah.
How about you, Flo? How about you?
Well, I mean, you always know you can go visit me at florenceion.com. And if you go now, actually, you will see the post where I try to make a case for why you should vote for me in the arena tonight. So if you want to go ahead and read that. Yeah, Victor, just keep scrolling a little below. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, if you want to read it, that's florenceion.com.
Shouldn't that graphic be, I like this app?
I like this app. I like these apps. I don't know. I came up with it. I had to come up with something.
No. I'm actually becoming an even bigger fan of like on the nose titles for things.
Yeah.
I'm just being on it, like obvious. I mean, I feel like we spend so much time trying to be cutesy with our headlines that people are just not understanding what's really happening.
Right.
So yeah, if you want to head to florenceion.com, I am cross-posting podcasts. You can listen there. You can catch on the articles that I'm writing that are posting from me. I just had a security review go up at Tom's Guide. Or you can follow me on Twitter at OhThatFlow, and on Instagram at OhThatFlow, and on Twitch at OhThatFlow, because apparently I'm a streamer now. Apparently.
Do it.
Apparently.
So, Flo, we need to have a conversation about streaming some Android games, too. Get yourself a good HDMI
Yeah,
output.
I need you to help me with that, because right now all I got is the N64, and I don't know how much content I'm going to get out of that.
We'll get you with a capture card. You'll be capturing 60 frame per second gameplay videos. We'll get it live streaming to Twitch.
I do have a capture card. I do have an Elgato.
You're
HD
ahead of the
60S.
curve.
Thank
I love
you.
it.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And also, before we go, I would like to thank our audience member, Art. Thank you, Art.
Yay, Art.
For being here. for being our audience member. And of course, way over there, I would like to thank Victor. Thank you so much for keeping us going today on the show, and for all of your positive reinforcement.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Victor. I really appreciate it.
You did great, Flo.
Thanks, Victor. You did great too. We both did so great. We're awesome.
All right, let's stop patting ourselves on the back. Let's take it home, Flo. Take it home.
All right, so that's it for this week. And if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we do listen to those and we love them. Call us at 347-SHOW. AAA, that's show AAA. You can also send us an email at aaa@twit.tv, and you can follow us on Twitter at Android Show. If you'd like a list of the Arena apps, you can go to twit.to/Android apps, and you can get the stats at twit.to/Arena stats. Show notes and past episodes are at twit.tv/AAA, or you can come watch us live like Art did. All you have to do is send an email, tickets at twit.tv, just so we know to put a chair out for you. Or catch us live on the stream at every Tuesday, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at twit.tv/live. Everyone, thank you for joining us this week, and we'll see you in 7 days. Goodbye, everybody.